So you're never going to believe this, right? But because I've been writing so much about Brooklyn and Nicola, they've only gone and blocked me on Instagram.
I think that the use of Instagram in this whole story is incredibly interesting.
At that point, Victoria became furious.
Brooklyn very much knew what he was doing and getting that message across. I'm not happy.
I think the Beckhams have accepted that they've probably lost their son.
The very beginning of the story comes back all the way to March 4th, 1999, when Brooklyn Beckham was born. Born into one of the most famous couples in the world then and still now. And then just 4 months later, July 1999, David and Victoria got married and very proudly displayed Brooklyn in this purple suit. That was definitely sort of a display, I think, of what Brooklyn had to come for the rest of his life. It was then brand Beckham, you're part of this family.
From the joy of Brooklyn's birth, things then take a nasty turn by the time 2004 comes around.
David went over to Madrid to play for Real Madrid, and this having fallen out with Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson. And Victoria didn't want to go initially, and so David went out there and lived alone. And then, of course, there were reports and allegations of him having relations with Rebecca Lewis, who was his personal assistant out there. Victoria obviously hit the roof. It was very humiliating and embarrassing for her. So she went and joined him, along with Brooklyn.
After the alleged affair in 2004, Brooklyn and Victoria become closer as the years passed.
They were absolutely inseparable. And I remember she took him to the Glamour Awards in 2013 as her date, and he rocked up in this. He looked so cute in this suit, and she got up on stage and paid tribute to him and said that he was the most handsome man in the room. She really relied on Brooklyn, and he was kind of the man of the house, and he very much lived up to that while David was away. And at the time, I think they were having difficulties in their marriage again. They'd moved back to London. David was away. And he was a real rock for her.
As time marched forward, Brooklyn became his own man, and come 2019, he found his true life partner.
Brooklyn and Nicola, they met at Leonardo DiCaprio's Halloween party. So I guess you'd have to have some credentials to get in the front door, wouldn't you? You know, David and Victoria liked her. You know, they're very welcoming of their sons' partners. They went official on Instagram, which is basically telling the world that they are together and they're delighted that they're together. And David and Victoria are obviously, you know, the first to congratulate them. And so, yeah, then we knew we had the beginning of Beckham 2.0. Brooklyn moved over to stay with her in America. And yeah, he popped the question. I mean, look, he was completely infatuated with her. I think he wanted to move fast. He wanted to move quickly to, you know, put a ring on her finger, I guess, and make sure nobody else got her. In April 2022, the wedding. We had this looming wedding, and that's where it all started to unravel.
From my understanding, the feud started when Nicola refused to wear one of Victoria Beckham's designs. Nicola wore 3 dresses throughout her wedding day and into the night, and none of them were any of Victoria's designs. A young woman sort of dreams of this day from a really young age, so I think she probably had an idea of what she wanted. It begs the question as to whether Nicola asked Brooklyn to pass that message on, or whether she might have had that exact conversation with Victoria. But once that conversation would have been had, I can only imagine Victoria's feeling towards that must have been quite bitter, for sure. After the wedding, everything seemed to be absolutely fine. So sort of putting out that message that we're happy families, happily married. We've accepted Nicola into the family.
Brooklyn didn't drop out of family life immediately, but Nicola wouldn't be at family events. So she didn't go to one of Victoria's fashion shows, for example. What this meant was it was pretty obvious that, you know, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had fallen out. So the Instagram loving came to an end between Nicola and Victoria. But they still managed to keep an element of a relationship with their son.
Then October 2024, Brooklyn launches his Cloud 23 hot sauce. 23 was David's number when playing in Madrid. and the whole family were in London. That appearance in October was their last public appearance together. This leads us on to this story, which was in April, where I personally noticed that Brooklyn hadn't then been at any other events with the Beckhams or the rest of his family since October 2024. So I then started looking through Instagram. I went through the last 2 years to see which events Brooklyn had been at, because if he'd been there, he definitely would have been pictured and they definitely would have posted it. We found that there was about 11 or 12 events that he hadn't turned up to or perhaps hadn't been invited to. And big events as well. Fast forward to April 12th, I felt like, got our confirmation that something was definitely going on here. It was Brooklyn and Nicola's 3rd wedding anniversary and nothing was ever posted.
The Beckhams didn't wish them a happy wedding anniversary, which for the Beckhams is unheard of.
What's really interesting about this was that Brooklyn posted a picture to his Instagram story of a bouquet of flowers, I think it was, or some sort of hamper. And the first photo said, "Thank you so much. What a lovely gift to receive." Now, that post was only up for a couple of minutes before he then took it down, he deleted it, and reposted the exact same image with a different caption that then thanked his in-laws, Nicola's mum and dad, for sending it to him. So at the time, that very much felt like a dig to his family for probably not sending anything. I think he was being absolutely clear as to what message that he wanted to get across, and that was that this hamper was not from his own parents, but from his in-laws instead. Moving on to the week later, which is then Victoria Beckham's 51st birthday, and Brooklyn again fails to post anything, any recognition of his mum's birthday. I remember saying to Katie at the time that he's got to post something, it's his mum's birthday. I think once again Brooklyn very much knew what he was doing and getting that message across that something has happened here, I'm not happy, and I'm not going to publicly say happy birthday to my mum. A couple of days later, we're now up to April 19th. We're now starting to think about David's biggest birthday ever, really, which is on May 2nd, which is his 50th birthday. And we knew that there was going to be sort of week-long celebrations here across Europe, really. There's going to be multiple opportunities that Brooklyn could join and come along. So we started to ask questions as to what those events are going to be, and is Brooklyn going to show up?
We're heading towards the big milestone birthday week, and everyone's really excited and it's going to be so fabulous. Brooklyn and Nicola fly from Los Angeles to London, and David and Victoria know they've landed in London. So they were ever so surprised not to see them at the big family party in the Cotswolds, which was on April the 30th, so 2 days before David's birthday. Given the fact that they were in the UK, staying in London, yet didn't go to this party, was obviously very upsetting for David and Victoria. On that occasion, they thought, okay, they haven't come to this one, maybe they'll come to the next one. On David's actual birthday, May the 2nd, it was a private jet from London to Bordeaux, where they went to a vineyard and tasted David's favourite Petrus wine. It was a private jet back to Paris for dinner at L'Ami Louis, which is one of David's favourite restaurants. They didn't go to that either. And so David was heartbroken. I think they really thought he would go to that one. He told them he would. And so at that point, Victoria became furious. David became upset. I think Victoria was furious that David was upset, and she was furious with her own son.
So then this brings us to May 4th. So this is where it's been David's 50th birthday, his actual birthday. Then the family ended up coming back and continuing the celebrations at Core, which is David's favourite restaurant in Notting Hill. We know that they were invited to all of the celebrations. Sources have told us that Brooklyn was very much invited.
So of course, they're really upset. The other siblings, Romeo and Cruz, just are done. David and Victoria are completely done with Nicola. There was no way back. After that, following day, David releases a series of pictures of this boys' fishing trip to the Scottish Highlands. And there are loads of pictures of them on fishing boats. This break took place 2 days before the big family party in the Cotswolds. So Brooklyn was in the country, Brooklyn could have gone. Brooklyn was invited 6 months before, as David told us on Instagram. So there was a clear intention there for David to tell the world that his son didn't want to be there. And he posted saying, "Miss you at Brooklyn Beckham." Didn't want to be there. And so that, when you see that, you're like, oh my God. I think the most significant takeaway from those pictures were that David didn't have to put them out there. And I think such was the upset and the anger. The fact they'd been in London for that week and didn't attend any of these parties was deeply concerning for David and Victoria, because they've worried about him for a while. They were concerned that he was being controlled by his wife. So he had this great group of friends, including Jack Ramsey, the son of Gordon Ramsay. He made a very close group of friends while he was at the Fine Arts College in Belsize Park. He just doesn't see anyone. He just sees Nicola.
Now up to May 8th, and what we've got here is TMZ released this story,
which said that Brooklyn and Nicola felt uncomfortable in Kim Turnbull's company. Now, Kim Turnbull is Romeo's new girlfriend. It was briefed, I believe, by Nicola's associates, Nicola's team. They said that Brooklyn used to go out with Kim and they didn't want to be around her. So they very much used this woman as their reason for not going. Now, Brooklyn didn't used to date Kim. They planted this bomb, and you're like, hang on a minute, all's not well in this camp. That was kind of laughed off by the Beckhams as silly. Kim wasn't on the fishing trip. So why couldn't Brooklyn have gone? Kim wasn't on the fishing trip. Kim also wasn't at the big family party in the Cotswolds. There were two events that Brooklyn could have gone to two, Nicola could have gone to one.
And that sources close to the Beckham actually, there's thoughts that this rift actually goes all the way back to last year when Kim wasn't even in the picture.
I was writing a piece about them, and I thought, hang on, I need to know. I wanted to look at what endorsements they've done together, and I thought the easiest way to do that is to go onto her Instagram, because they obviously post their endorsement deals because that's where they get their money from for doing that. And Nicola didn't come up. I couldn't find her, and neither could Brooklyn. And I was like, they've blocked me. That was a real middle finger up to me. Yeah, so I don't think they're fans of mine. So Saturday for Sunday, I did the snubbing and the feud and the upset, and then and how they thought they were going to be estranged from him from that point. They love their family. They've built a brand around their family. They genuinely love their family. I think a lot of, obviously we see all this OTT stuff on Instagram and people say, oh, shut up, whatever. But they do. I think the Beckhams have accepted that they've probably lost their son, which is obviously devastating for them. Brooklyn's always wanted to have a child. Brooklyn's always wanted to be a dad, and he's wanted to be a young dad. I don't know whether perhaps they may have a baby at some point, and obviously what would be really heartbreaking, more heartbreaking than what's happening now, is that David and Victoria wouldn't be able to see their grandchild.
More opinion and more fuel is being added to the fire every single day, every hour sometimes. What we've got here now is Harry and Meghan entering the narrative, which is really quite interesting. And what you've got here is similarities between Brooklyn and Harry. So both Nepo babies, as people like to call it. They've both married American women, older American women. Both of those women are 4 years older than the boys. They've then moved to America, and with that move and with that marriage, they've then become a bit extradited from their family, really. Combining both Harry and Meghan and Brooklyn and Nicola, you've got this absolute massive bomb of speculation that's going off. From both sides, you've got the royal family fans, you've got the showbiz fans and the Beckham fans completely coming together.
I spoke to a friend of the Beckhams about this, and I said to them, it's all a bit Meghan, isn't it? And they said, you said it. And I think it's certainly something that they are thinking. And there's a lot of similarities here. And it does feel a little bit, let's blame the woman. Let's blame the woman for this. It's always the woman's fault. And I think on this occasion with Brooklyn, I think it's probably is the case.
And I think the next few weeks and months are going to be really interesting for sure. And the truth is out there, and it's all on Instagram.